All right, today we're cracking open some really powerful ideas from Mark Minervini's book, Mindset Secrets for Winning. It's basically a guide to unlocking your personal power in, well, pretty much everything you do.
But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever really stopped to think about what separates the true champions from, everybody else? Is it just raw talent, dumb luck, or is there something else, something deeper, running in the background?
Well, to get to the bottom of that, we're going to dive into the work of someone who's basically dedicated his entire life to that very question. This book is going to be our roadmap for understanding the very architecture of a winner's mind.
And you got to hear about the author, Mark Minervini, because he's not just some theorist writing from an ivory tower. This guy's story is just incredible. He's a junior high dropout who turned himself into a Wall Street multimillionaire. Get this, in 1997, he won the U.S. Investing Championship by getting a 155% return. Yeah, so when he talks about winning, you listen, because he's lived it.
Okay, so let's get into the real meat of the book. It all revolves around this core idea. Thinking of your brain as a computer that's running on a very, very specific kind of software.
So Minervini's central point is this: our belief structure, all the stuff we hold to be true about ourselves, about the world, it acts like our brain's operating system. It's just humming away in the background, quietly shaping every single decision we make, every action we take, and yep, every result we get.
And he's got a name for these core beliefs. He calls them global beliefs. Now, think of these less as just thoughts and more like the master commands, the root code in your mental programming. They're the fundamental rules that literally build the reality you experience.
Now, this mental software really comes in two main flavors. On one side, you've got empowering beliefs. These are the ones that open doors and show you what's possible. But on the other side, you have limiting beliefs. These are the ones that build walls and are constantly telling you all the things you can't do. And here's the most important part. We get to choose which code we run.
So, that's the million-dollar question, right? How do you actually go about installing that winning software? Well, Minervini doesn't leave us hanging. He gives us a practical toolkit he calls the 7 Truths of Winning. These 7 truths are basically a step-by-step guide for systematically replacing that old, buggy, limiting code with new, empowering beliefs. I mean, just think about principles like winning is a choice, you own it all, or it's never too late. These aren't just cheesy slogans for a poster. They're designed to fundamentally shift you from being a passive passenger in your life to being the one in the driver's seat. It's all about taking total responsibility and seeing every single outcome, good or bad, as a lesson. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This idea of radical responsibility, is mindset really the only thing that matters? The book is actually very clear about this. While a winning mindset is absolutely the foundation, we can't just pretend that real-world factors like where you come from or your economic situation don't play a massive role. The point isn't to ignore those challenges. It's about focusing on the one thing you can control, your own internal operating system.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Once you start adopting these beliefs and taking control of that internal system, you begin to build something incredibly powerful, a champion's self-image.
Minervini actually shares this incredible story about a karate tournament he was in back in 1982. Physically, he was in peak condition, totally prepared, but he got in there, faced this really intimidating opponent, and was just mentally defeated before the match even started. He lost. And he realized it wasn't a failure of skill. It was what he calls mental defeat. His self-image wasn't that of a champion yet, and that taught him your internal identity is every bit as critical as your physical training. So what's the big takeaway from all this? What does it all boil down to? Really, the entire journey to winning, to achieving anything, it starts with one single choice. The choice about which software you're going to let run your mind. And that brings us right here to the final, most important question. Forget about next week or next year. Right now, based on everything we've talked about, what is one limiting belief, just one little piece of old code that you will choose to challenge today? Because making that single choice, well, that's where everything begins.